Hey, Elizabeth Nader here tonight with my absolutely favorite guest, the voice of New Jersey, the super spreader of truth, Bill Spadea. Welcome to Jersey First TV.
Hey, Elizabeth, great to be back. So great to be with you in the audience tonight. There's so much to talk about.
So much to talk about. We never have enough time, but we'll try our best. So I've got to start with what happened 4 hours ago. I wanted to talk cancel culture with you, and we're going to get to that. But 4 hours ago, roughly, the CDC came out and said that if you are vaccinated, you no longer have to wear a mask or practice social distancing. And I have to follow up with the tweet from our POTUS because it was something to remember. This is his tweet, and I know you read it. This is what Joe Biden said. The rule is now simple. Get vaccinated or wear a mask until you do. The choice is yours. So how do you feel about that, Bill?
I mean, first of all, it's Joe Biden was really incoherent tonight. I think it really is a sign of that he is failing health-wise, his mental capacity. Quite honestly, it's hard not to feel sorry for the guy when you watch him. But that aside, other than that horror show, that I think this man is really being used by an abusive staff, et cetera, and party operatives. That aside, for the president of the United States to effectively say, if you don't do what we have been telling you to do all along, we're going to force you into a submission, that the overwhelming evidence shows two things. Number one, that mask wearing does absolutely nothing to stop viral spread. And not only do we have the examples of the more than 1,000 counties in America that had a mask mandate that showed no discernible difference between non-mask counties, but we've got Texas, we've got Florida, we've got Tennessee, we've got now even the state of California, just showing how science never had anything to do with it. It was all politics and polls. The governor's now facing a recall election, and he's getting rid of the mask mandate. So for the president of the United States to hold this up and say, well, we know we can force you to wear this mask despite the evidence that it's actually potentially harming your health, certainly that of children, and hold that out as you have to take the vaccine or not. First of all, the vaccine is not FDA approved. This vaccine is nothing more than an experimental flu shot designed for COVID. And even Bill Gates and the companies that have put these shots out there are telling us you're going to have to take it 2, maybe 3 times a year. So our government has become a shill for big pharma. I think for many years, many people thought that the elites in government protected big business. I think that things have changed. Big business is running the U.S. government right now. And this is a scary time. And, you're not even allowed to have a conversation about it. I imagine if Donald Trump, or any Republican for that matter, ever said something like what the president said today: either you do what we say and take this experimental shot, or we're going to make you wear a mask for indefinitely, knowing that all the money was going to flow to big pharma, Bill Gates, et cetera. They would have canceled the president just on that. The entirety of corporate media would have been screaming, saying this is unfair. This is about lining the pockets of the elites. The far left has become the elites in this country. And I'll tell you, I think what was said today was unconscionable. Now, the good news, he just went too far. The average person sees this, right? Like the average person's like, well, what are you talking about? And even with the CDC announcement, the truth is, Elizabeth, nothing changes. Most states are moving away from all of their COVID rules and protocols anyway. There's no credible science expert out there that will tell you the mask is how we stay safe. I mean, just a month and a half ago, Dr. Fauci was telling us you needed 2 masks.
He doesn't know.
And here's what's amazing about it, that they tell you, and the propagandists have been telling us, that despite all the evidence that the masks don't work, they're telling you you're not wearing the mask to protect you. You're wearing the mask to protect others. So actually, when we have 7 members of the New York Yankees team test positive for coronavirus after being fully vaccinated, what Big Pharma has been saying from go, I'll give them credit, there was honesty. They said this vaccine will not stop you from getting coronavirus and will not stop you from spreading coronavirus.
Correct.
So which science are we supposed to listen to now?
I don't know. I'm so confused.
I tell everybody, take off the mask, go back to normal. I haven't worn a mask since it started. I reject this ridiculous cult of, I don't even know what it's a cult of. It's a cult of submission that has no basis in reality, certainly no basis in public health.
No, that's absolutely true. And, you know, science aside, and I don't know which science people are using right now, but, you know, Jersey First is all about standing up for freedoms. So let's just talk about the basic freedom, Bill, of wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, choosing to get a medical intervention, to get a drug injected into you, or choosing not to. Why are we having this conversation? It's not a simple, obvious American freedom. How are we at this point that we have to point this out to people that we shouldn't be coerced to get into a medical device or to be forced to take a medical drug?
You know, there's a lot of conversation about the oligarchs that run some of these other countries around the world, and you've got a concentration of power and a very few elite wealthy individuals. I don't see any difference in America right now. I think you've got oligarchs in social media, the oligarchs in big pharma. They are now controlling the levers of government, because anyone that challenges, any level of this, you want to raise a red flag and challenge the vote count in Arizona, or some of the things that we're hearing with the audit going on, you get canceled. You get tossed off of social media. You can't say it. The minute that I bring up anything to do with masks or vaccines, even when I'm quoting the CDC and the World Health Organization, we get tossed out. You know, you and I talked about this before, that I ended up in YouTube jail for 7 days and brought the whole station with me because they didn't like a post that I had. And what's amazing is it was a conversation with 2 elected officials over whether or not they were going to challenge the mask mandate for kids in school. So the conversation was all about, why are these kids wearing masks, even if you believe in the science of the mask. Even if you buy into that, there isn't anybody that can refute or stand against the actual facts that kids aren't affected by coronavirus. They just don't die from it. Judy Perskilly came out, I think it was maybe it was yesterday or the day before. I have to listen to it in our first news, and it grates on me. I'm glad we play it because people need to hear it. But she basically said that anyone that doesn't think this is serious for kids is wrong. The data shows otherwise. And her fact that she used was 7 kids died. I said, now wait a minute. 7 children. We're a state of 9 million people. You've got more kids that are dying from accidents in the home, abuse. There are real problems impacting kids. COVID's not one of them.
No, it's not.
So anyway, they pulled us down, and the good news is we have a workaround to it. But you know, Elizabeth, cancel culture it's not just political correctness. We thought it was for a time. But what I've observed with the power of these social media giants, with the power of big pharma, with the power of the CDC, when did we elect the board of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention? I don't remember that election.
I don't either.
Why are they setting policy? I said this to a couple of reporter friends of mine today. I said, you're all celebrating that the CDC said, oh, without a vax, you can, or with a vax, you can unmask. I said, well, what about a guy like me, healthy middle-aged person who hasn't had so much as a cold in the past 3 years? I'm not taking the vaccine. My kids aren't taking the vaccine. My 79-year-old mother-in-law who lives with us, not taking the vaccine. And guess what? We're all healthy and we're fine. So I now have to be subject to the tyranny of your fear. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. And I don't know how anyone can look at the CDC today with an ounce of credibility and say that they're following anything close to medical science.
No, they're absolutely not. Now, are you guys out of YouTube jail? Has it been 7 days?
It's a good question. Let's see. It was Friday. So tomorrow is officially our release. We're out. But
congratulations.
You know what? I'm not going to use YouTube, though. I'm going to tell you the truth. We decided to go internal. The only reason I was using YouTube at all was when I post something to nj1015.com/Bill Spadea, which is my main site. I write 2 articles a day. I link to all the experts, etc. When I have a good interview, I take the interview and we post it, but we were hosting it on YouTube. And that left us vulnerable to the Google oligarchs who took us down. So now we do it in an internal server, and the audio is is still up
Well,
there. So
I have
crazy.
to tell you right now, we're on live on YouTube. So let's see if we make the half-hour mark. Okay. So we got to tell some local stories about cancel culture. It's not just yours, which is incredible, and so many people are upset. But I know you have a few others. I want to share one with you in Kinnelon. In Kinnelon, there's a mayor there. He's a great guy. Okay. By all accounts, I've heard Jim Frieda is a great guy, but he got all this pressure from groups saying that those blue line American flags downtown on the light poles, that the blue line is a KKK symbol somehow.
Oh,
so he got this pressure. He took them down, and then the council came and gave him the support he needed to put them back up. So here we have these local stories. What do we do about this? This is crazy. The people are more outspoken about things like taking down a blue line flag in a small town like that. What do we need to do to stop this?
So we have to turn the narrative against that small minority of people that are using things like the blue line, things like this fake insurrection on January 6th. I've never seen an insurrection where police officers actually escort the insurrectionists into the Capitol to take some pictures, and then the whole thing is anyway. But I don't want to have that discussion now. It's very simple to me. We have to fight back against the false narrative of bad labels. And here's what I mean by that. Today, I was called a vaccine denier by some reporter that I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if I deny that they exist. I'm not sure exactly what she meant by this, but a vaccine denier. Merriam-Webster, I read this earlier, someone tweeted it out, has redefined the term anti-vaxxer. An anti-vaxxer now is somebody that doesn't support mandates. So think about this for a minute, that if you stand up for yourself and say, well, wait a minute now, this is not approved, it's only authorized based on an emergency that clearly we're not having, with fewer than 1,000 people across the entire state of New Jersey in the hospital testing positive with COVID. You oppose that, you're labeled an anti-vaxxer. And the challenge is that too many people have allowed these labels to stick. So when you're a cop, you're automatically labeled a racist until you prove otherwise. And we need to stand up. It really goes back to the emperor has no clothes. This is, we are living in a fable. And that the fable is that we're being told cops are generally racist, and anyone that opposes the mask or the vaccine is anti-science. If you accept that premise that there is a science out there that shows we should have done all these things, you lose. We have to attack it at its root core. Here's the bottom line. Cops are heroes. Cops need to be defended. We cannot have any structural stability in this state or this country without standing up for law enforcement. So that's number one. And I think people are afraid to stand up. So for example, this mask thing has driven me crazy since the beginning, because I saw it as a symbol of submission and an allowance that ignorance could drive policy. So the minute you put up a fact, they're like, nope, you're just an anti-science person. More normal people who are not involved like you and I are, average moms and dads, have to start standing up and teaching their kids that the government can and will and does lie to them. They need to teach their kids, don't just assume that what you hear and see from the news is true. Think. Ask. You know, you brought up the mayor. Look at the nurse Erin Pine, who's lost her contract now. She's been suspended without pay because she's a nurse who reported on sick kids and said the common thread here is they're wearing the mask and it's dirty and it's on the floor. They're putting dirt in their mouth, and she's been canceled. So more people need to, instead of attacking her, stand up for her. And I think that if we're going to save this state, if we're going to turn this country around, if we're going to have a Republican Party in this state to even recognize over the next few years, people have to stand up and fight. And even though you may not want to, you want this to go away. I can't tell you, Elizabeth, how many adults I talk to that have their hands on their ears and they're saying, la, 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 don't tell me. I just want to go back to work.
You can't right now.
Months ago when this, you can't. You have to choose sides and fight. And I'm sorry for the folks that are not political, but believe me, this is not political at all. When they tell you that you are safe with a mask from the hostess table to the table, and then you're safe without a mask while you eat and talk at your table, you have to question that, push back on that, and fight that. And the best way to do it is with your children. How many of your kids are coming home from school, if they're at school, or coming off the Zoom call and saying, can you believe these irresponsible people who are not wearing masks? And people don't want the fight. So they accept the premise. It's like the mask thing and the vaccine have become the new global warming, right? So you just have to accept the premise. We were told 10, 15 years ago, New York City would be under 3 feet of water by 2015.
Right.
And people accepted the premise and then started recycling their goods, even though it was bankrupting small towns and the paper and the bottles are going to the same place. So we have to start thinking critically. You have to question and challenge everything. And unfortunately, for people who just want to be left alone, look at the last 14 months. Look at the last 14 months. You were told stay home for 2 weeks and this will be done. Then 30 days, then 45 days. Then you were told stay distant, don't visit grandma and grandpa. Then you were told wear a mask. Now you're told get a vaccine. It never ends. Fauci has actually told us wear 2 masks, don't shake hands anymore. You have to rip the mask off, literally and figuratively, and say I'm going to challenge everything. How many people really know a racist cop? Almost nobody. Think about that. Nobody. Are there racists out there? Of course there are. But when you label everyone a racist, when you try to convince people that the American flag is racist, that everything we stand for in law and order, this is an upside down world right now. We have to stand up for what we know. And guess what? You don't have to be a constitutional lawyer. You don't even have to have ever read the Constitution to know we're free people. We have a right to go to church and raise our kids. Enough. But heed this warning. They are coming at us at every level. They're telling us there are no genders. They're telling us that there's no God. They're telling us that there's no family. Think about the things that have been attacked over the past year. And I think it's finally coming apart for them because
they're overreaching.
They're overreaching.
They're overreaching. But you're right. It's unfortunately, people can't just close their ears, close their eyes. I'm sorry. Right now, you have to fight. And I look at the small stories, like in Kinnelon, they surrounded that mayor and said, we support you. Put the flags back up. You look at what Nurse Erin did, and her story is unbelievable. I mean, cutting the mask off a kid's face. Where are those parents? Why is this fear causing so much damage to this child? She's standing up. You know, she lost her job, but she stood up, right? And you have the story you tell about Sarah Irwin, the Hopewell.
Oh my God!
Tell that story.
It's really unreal. This is a cop in Hopewell Township, and she posted something a year ago while members of Black Lives Matter and Antifa were literally burning down cities. Cops were being assaulted. People were dying. We had real insurrection happening in cities on the West Coast. Violence, small businesses, many Black-owned businesses burned to the ground by Black Lives Matter members. So what Officer Irwin posted on a personal Facebook page, and as I understand, only private to a group of people. So it's not like she even put it out there. Someone trolled her, found it, and then went after her. And she got fired. She lost her job. Now we're helping her. We're raising money. We're working on it. I believe she's going to be reinstated. That said, this cop was canceled because she went after the rioting and the domestic terrorism that she saw in these Black Lives Matter protests and riots. And it was spot on. If you read what she wrote, she was, and she did it in a very personal way. She said, you know, my kids cry when I go off to work. They're watching our cities burn on the news. They're watching reporter after reporter, talking head after talking head, disparage police officers, blame the cops. It's if you think about it, the criminals are out there burning the cities down, yet the cops are being labeled as the racists and the bad guys. It's completely backward. Now, here's the thing, though. Shame on Hopewell Township. You asked the question, Elizabeth, what do we need to do? We need to stop tolerating weakness. Now, when I think of the story you told about the mayor, my first instinct, it's going to be unpopular. That mayor was too weak to stand up in the beginning. The mayor should have never accepted taking those things down. We need to stand up. You come at me and tell me I can't fly my flag, I'm going to fly two flags.
Right.
You come at me and tell me that you know, right, that being a cop is a racist, I'm going to write a bigger check to the police groups. You know, and we have to start pushing back. You know, we don't like confrontation. America has been labeled over many, many centuries as a sleeping giant. Yeah. And if you stir them too much and you really upset them, watch out. Right. I think that backlash is coming, but we need that backlash to happen locally. When your friends and neighbors are talking to you, like, for example, we tell everyone that comes to our house, take off the mask. We don't wear masks in the Spadea household, period.
Yep, that's it.
And I make it very clear. Is it uncomfortable sometimes? Yes. Yes, it is. I haven't seen my dentist in a year. Now, I brush my teeth 3 times a day. I floss 3 times a day. I've got healthy teeth. But because there's the rule at the dentist office is you sit in your car, there's a temperature check, you go in one at a time, you got to have a mask on. I'm like, horrible. Let me just get this straight. You got to wear a mask in the waiting room 3 minutes before you are literally going to be in my mouth working. What part of this am I missing? So
I don't know.
So, you know, like, so I've made some aggressive changes, but I'll tell you this, Elizabeth, we have to be strong for the people that can't fight back. You know, the woman working at Walmart who's working the second job because she's got 3 kids at home. She has no choice. She can't go on a mass protest and lose that job. She'll lose her health care. She'll lose the food on the table. Right. We who have anyone who has the ability, you know, as I heard over and over again, being raised Catholic, and I'm still a Catholic, although we have not been to mass in a year, again, because I'm not going to wear a mask and subject myself and my family to contact tracing. So when the church wakes up, we'll be back at mass. But that aside, as a Catholic, I consider that the church has left good Catholics and they need to get back on track. But that's a story for another day. You're taught that when much is given, much is expected. So for those of us who are blessed with the ability to make decisions, I can make a decision about where I'm going to work. I don't have to wear a mask. I can make a decision to shop on Amazon. I've made a decision to self-select to vendors and stores and places that I know I can go. Those folks that are stuck working the 3rd job as a waitress, that are stuck, you know, working in the big box stores, they deserve a voice. They need someone to fight. So every time you let your neighbor or your friend, or honestly, even a member of your family, get away with a throwaway line, all cops are racist, a throwaway line, what are you, anti-vax? You're part of the problem. And I'm sorry to say it, but, you know, look, I've got members in my own family who have not talked to me for more than a year. And it's because this crisis is a crisis that has crushed so many people that it is the most divisive time that we've seen, certainly since the Vietnam War, and probably go back to the Civil War. What's that?
Well, it's fear. You know what? Fear is a liar, but fear is the most powerful emotion that you can feel. And that's what separated us. You know, another group, you talk about kids, and let me tell you another cancel culture story. An 8-year-old in Montclair. Now, Montclair, by the way, has yet to open their schools. Jersey First has been fighting the lawsuit. You know about that. Rosemary called and talked to you about that. But this happened last year. An 8-year-old who was going to Montclair, shares a birthday with George Washington. She's all excited, so she did a report on him. Her friends called her a racist, wouldn't play with her. She had to be pulled out of the school system, and to this day is homeschooled. How do we get to a point where we're telling an 8-year-old, you're a racist because you did a report on George Washington? Now, where are the parents in Montclair saying that's unacceptable? You know, other 8-year-olds don't make that up. Where are they getting that from?
Right. 8-year-olds are not calling each other racist. They don't even have a concept of what that is any more than 8-year-olds understand sexuality and sexual acts, even though the Department of Education is now enforcing these outrageous study curriculum for children as young as 2nd and 3rd grade about sex acts, and that's going to start in September. So to your point, Elizabeth, where are the parents? Well, the parents, unfortunately, are the problem, and they don't want to fight. They want. I think they believe that somehow, magically, America solved all the problems. And if there is anyone that is showing a problem, you're the problem. What could possibly be wrong? New Jersey, especially, and Montclair, very wealthy area. The People's Republic of Montclair is so wealthy that they think that, our wealth will always be here. And they don't understand that all around them, the violence in the cities, the poverty. I'll say this, one of the problems with this whole racial conversation is that it ignores one of the great facts that we've seen over the past 30 years. And that is that the policies that have been implemented and enacted by Congress, by city mayors and councils to supposedly help poor people who are largely people of color in our cities, whether it's Irvington, Trenton, Camden, Newark, politicians take credit and then say, guys, we're the only ones handing you money. You have to keep voting for us. And then you walk the streets and then you see the conditions in some of our public housing with rats and roaches and no hot water and heat being turned off in the winter. And you say, now, wait a minute. How is it possible that the media labels those that stand up for police, those that stand up for economic opportunity as racist? And yet the Democratic politicians who play the race card are literally keeping people in squalor. I remember when Chris Christie went to Camden and took credit for the reduction in crime. And he did that hand in hand with Barack Obama. Both ends of the spectrum, white, black, Republican, Democrat, they were both wrong. They were all dancing on this statistic that had changed without recognizing the very real fact that there are kids getting meals in Camden, that there are gunshots on the street, that the average person can't get an education nor a job, and the city is largely abandoned. Anybody with the ability got out. So we've done a disservice to people by allowing the left and the elites to shape the argument. The argument is not whether or not cops are racist.
Right.
What the argument is why are you attacking the very institution that people in crime-ridden areas need to be upheld and they want? If you actually take the time to turn off the news and talk to people, I tell this story often. I spent time in Newark. Anthony Ambrose is a friend of mine. He's the, Ross Baraka, who I'm not a huge fan of, but he hired Anthony to be the public safety director. Anthony came in and started hiring cops and walking the street. So I went in, I'm like, I want to see it firsthand. And I said, where was the last shooting? I want to go into that neighborhood. So I went into the South Ward and we walked the streets and I went into Curly's Shoe Shine. Curly's Shoe Shine has been there for 60 years, 3 generations. And I asked them, I said, what's it like now that there are cops on the street? Because I'm watching the news tell me that black people hate cops because cops are racist. And they told me, they're like, thank God the cops are here. Do you realize when Mayor Cory Booker reduced the number of cops, we had drug dealers urinating on our plate glass windows. We had kids that could not walk to school because there were needles and gunshots. Now we're starting to turn it around. Now they're going to undo it because Ross Baraka can't get out of his own way, and all of a sudden now he's handing out money left and right. But here we go. That's another story. The reality is we have to shape the argument, and the argument has to be: you stand up for your cops. Obviously, you discipline those that go astray. But why do people feel the need to always be apologists? I think it should be understood. No kidding, if a cop commits a crime, they're going to find themselves facing the full extent of the law. We already know that. I won't discuss that with you because there are literally 1 million law enforcement members that interact with the public nearly 40 million times a year. Only a handful of times does something go awry. And what no one wants to admit is that there are more unarmed white suspects shot and killed by police than unarmed black suspects. And the entire number is less than 30 combined. Yet we have the entire world on its ear. And Elizabeth, it's the same theme, whether it's the vaccine, whether it's global warming, whether it's cops, whether it's all of this happens because good people are too afraid to be confrontational. Let me tell you something. The other side is not afraid to tear down your family, tear down your race, tear down your religion, and tear down your country. We have to stand up for ourselves and fight like hell.
They're not afraid to do it, and they're not afraid to lie. I have to tell you this quick story before I let you go. So Mikey Sherrill, she's a congresswoman for CD11. It happens to be my congresswoman. When you brought up the insurrection, right, in January 6th, she stated that, and she told the Capitol Police that Republicans were giving reconnaissance tours to people. Now, it turns out she flat out lied, and now there's an ethics investigation that is being called for by Republicans on Capitol Hill. But this is what happens, isn't it? They get away with it. They lie about it. And listen, if you disagreed with anything with the election, then they just came down on you. But she's allowed to lie and accuse Republicans of doing reconnaissance tours. To me, this is beyond insulting. And it's, I guess, they looked at the security cameras, there's nothing there. How is it that the narrative is so controlled by them that now this story has been out? Now, no one's going to hear that she lied. Everyone thinks that the Republicans did it.
It's a shame. It's the old thing in news, right? The mistake happens on page 1. The correction is on page 30.
Right.
And right. So once it's out there, I think it's time that people what's happening in New Jersey. And I want to commend you, and I want to commend Rosemary Becky. Rosemary ran a great campaign against Mikey Sherrill. I know we'll see her name on a ballot eventually someday again, and we should. She's certainly somebody that's got a great message, and she's got a strong outlook, and she's positive and gets it. That said, I think it's almost like we don't realize we're in the fight until it's too late.
Yeah.
People can't wrap their heads around the fact that this veteran of our armed forces, member of Congress, would literally make up a story. But look, Ocasio-Cortez made up a story too. I understand she wasn't even in the Capitol. So they're willing to lie because they don't get called out. Judy Persichilli today yesterday talked about those 7 kids. Now, left out the comorbidities, the compromised immune system, and the fact that far more kids die from flu when you're tracking flu. We're not doing that anymore, but when we were tracking it, than COVID could ever kill. They leave out the narrative that literally their own CDC said that kids under the age of 20 have a 99.997% chance of survival. That means only 3 out of 10,000 kids that get sick will die. And of those 3 kids, again, according to the CDC, will be immune compromised and already sick. So we know those as facts. But the minute she comes out and says, oh my God, 7 kids died, people say, oh my God, 7 kids died, you better put the jab in your 12-year-old. And when I call it out, I get labeled in writing by some journalist as a vaccine denier. So we have to start laughing at the other side. We have to mock them for their ridiculousness. We have to have the strength and the courage and the toughness to say, you know what? They're coming at me, and it's time I make a choice. We cannot afford to be neutral. These people have a bad agenda, and they're coming for you because you're nothing more than an ATM to our government, whether it's to send them tax dollars or to funnel money to big pharma. And guess what? Wasn't it always the left who said, the Republicans are the party of big corporate. They're the pearl-clutching big corporate elite. Well, turns out the opposite is true.
Exactly.
And it's no longer conservative or liberal. I was telling you earlier off air, and I'll just say this quick. Jamel Holly is a friend. Now, Jamel Holly is a Black American. He's as liberal as they get, wants to ban certain books. They'll see all of it. But Jamel Holly is standing up for medical freedom.
That's
and if you ask me, I'm not a one-issue voter, but I can find a one issue with somebody that I may disagree with 8 or 10 times and say, you know what? Today's fight is to keep that jab out of the arms of unsuspecting children when we have no idea what it's going to do. And even if you play the odds and say, well, according to the vaccine adverse event reporting system run by the federal government, it's only 80,000 adverse effects, only 4,000 dead. Hey, out of 200 million jabs, that's pretty good. I'll play those odds. You don't get the right to choose what risk I'm going to take with myself or my children. And you certainly don't get to have the Constitution of the United States and our unalienable rights usurped by medical bureaucrats.
Amen. Period.
Right? I mean, that's it.
I love it. And you know what? Thank you to Jamal for standing up against his party and siding with medical freedom. And at the end of the day, Bill, if I have to go to one issue, it's going to be to protect my kids and protect my choices. And that's what it's going to be. So thank you for being that person, for being that voice. Jersey First is here also just to protect freedoms for everyone in Jersey. I mean, we have to be at this point. We have to wake up. We have to do the work. Rosemary created this organization to fight for every New Jerseyan who doesn't feel like they're represented. We're their voice. And you're part of that. And it's a huge deal that you are in front of 1.5 million people every day. And you're taking those barbs. We appreciate it, though. You're telling the truth.
Listen, let me just, if you don't mind, I just want to say one last thing, that if anybody is wondering whether or not our position supporting freedom, our position supporting families, supporting communities of faith, supporting decision-making at the local level is unpopular, I can share this with you, that our market share, specifically my morning show, has doubled since this started. People are aware, and I'll tell you this, the old Republican Party didn't speak for the guy driving a truck, didn't speak for the third shifter at Walmart. Today's new party, whatever that is, and I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, today's new way of thinking has got to be working people, middle-class people, small businesses. We have to reject the cult of the elites and the experts. Nobody is expert enough to tell me how to raise my kids and what to put into my body. Period. I'll make my own decisions.
So that is the best sentence we can end on. I cannot improve that at all. I agree with you. Jersey First agrees with you. And there's so many people commenting right now. Bill, thank you so much for your time, as always. Everybody listening tomorrow, we still have you on for a little bit before you RV down to Florida, right? When are you taking off for Florida?
I'm taking the RV. I spent all day today talking about what handle I should use on my new CD.
I know.
I think my family thinks I've lost it. I'm kind of looking forward to it, though. The open road, I love to drive. So I really did it. I bought an RV and I'm driving to Florida over Memorial Day. So I will report back. Hopefully I'll be able to join you right when I come back.
Yeah, you got to join me when you come back. I sense a movie coming on, Spadea on the Road. I think there's something there that you could develop. Cross-country, RV.
You never know. I will tell you this, for those of you that do tune into my Facebook Live in the morning, I'm up dark, 0 dark 30, as they told us in the Marine Corps, 5:55 in the morning. I'm going to do it from the road. So even though I'll be off the radio, I will be checking in at the New Jersey 101.5 Facebook page to let you know. I could be a little groggy. I don't know. I'm thinking I'm driving overnight. I don't have a huge plan right now. I'm figuring it out as I go.
You'll figure it out, but we got to get our Spadea fixed, so we'll be with you in the morning. Bill, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go. Have a great evening. We will talk to you soon. Thanks guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.